how do you see Dalit journalism of today, given the usage of internet, social media, and print widely? So also, can you contextualize it to Andhra Telangana situation?
Yeah, you see, I agree with you. I mean, we cannot, clearly, sort of talk in terms of Dalit journalism. But I would suggest, I would think that there is relevance of the Dalit perspective in the journalism and the social media, because again, if one looked at the social background of the media, both print media and electronic media, and of course the ownership, I don't have to elaborate this point. Invariably it is dominated by the Dvijas. Okay, whereas the Dvija reporting has certain limitations, just as the upper caste intellectuals of the pre-47 period have certain limitations, though they articulated nationalism, unity, national unity, and seeking to build a nation. So similarly, the journalistic field is so overwhelmingly dominated by the Dvijas. The Dalit perspective, the Dalit point of view, the Dalit issues. I mean Dalit-Bahujan. When I say that, is insignificant. Therefore, if one or two Dalit intellectuals, or Dalit reporters, journalists come, they make a, kind of a name, because they consciously, sort of negated the what I call the conspiracy of silence by the upper caste Dvija journalists, by bringing in, the issues. We know, for example, the issues, even till today, we see that the issues of Dalit women, the atrocities committed on the Dalit women, do not really find adequate place, in the print media, or for that matter, even, so I don't subscribe to a distinct Dalit journalism, but the desirable aspect of it is that we need more and more democratization of journalism, of both print and electronic media, so as to provide space for representation, just as Dalits were seeking representation in the fields of political and administrative system. So also representation of the Dalit perspective, Dalit point of view in the journalism is desirable, though that cannot be exclusively called as a Dalit journalism. I mean, just as we don't have a Brahmin journalism, we don't call it Brahmin journalism, but it was dominated by the kind of a genre. But I strongly feel that Dalit perspective, Dalit point of view, Dalit notions, Dalit perceptions, Dalit issues, I think need to be focused more sharply with an empathy, sensitivity, that a democratic society expects. In that sense, I would think the desirability of representation, democratization, diversification of journalism, both print and electronic media.
Okay. So my next question is, since Dalit community has also certain evils like patriarchy, caste-like practices, so against other marginalized communities, so how do you think Dalit journalism and literature is trying to bring about a kind of social transformation within the community?
Yeah, I agree with you. In the beginning, in the beginnings of the Dalit movements, Dalit articulation, Dalit literature actually used the group as an inclusive category. But there are also what you call distinctions, and there's stratification, the relations between the Mallas and Madigas. For example, in the case of Andhra, I can tell you, there are cultural distinctions, within the Dalit communities, there are 59 Dalit communities, there are 59 subcastes, there are distinctions. But, that kind of a hierarchy, that kind of a stratification, and the kind of contradiction that exists is not antagonistic. Both, of course, the Madigas are treated inferior to the Mallas, for example. In some cases, there is no what you call interdining and intermarriage between these communities. But yet, both of them, all these subcastes, are dominated by the Savarnas. They were exploited by the Savarnas. So now, from 1990s onwards, I mean, all over the country, particularly so in Andhra Pradesh, the demand for what you call division within the Dalit category. So that within the reservation of let's say 17% or 18% that is provided. So equal representation should also be given to other subcastes. So that sensitivity, is now brought into the Dalit question. So they are aware of the fact that there are distinctions, but these distinctions need to be taken care in projecting the collective identity of the Dalit. And of course, efforts are now being made to bring about, the unity of thought and unity of action. Though it caused certain damage to the broad, Dalit-Bahujan movement, but yet, you're right in saying that that the stratification, the differentiation within the communities need to be taken note of, and also accordingly, a kind of a program strategy needed to be evolved. That I think is the need of the hour, and that some of the conscious elements within the Dalit intellectual world are making attempts to bring about so as to give real meaning to the unity of the Dalits vis-a-vis the Savar. Yeah.
Can you give a small example of?
Yes. Yeah. You see, when the whole debate of division between the Mallas and Madigas has come up, some of the neutral intellectuals, scholars, in Andhra and Telangana, have formed, some kind of a solidarity group, and they sought to resolve the differences between these two important sub-communities, between the Mallas and the Madigas. And they, in fact, impressed upon the Mallas, for example, in Andhra, in the context of Andhra Pradesh, the reservation benefits have been disproportionately appropriated by the Malla community. There is also a kind of a geographical, distinction. Mallas are more in number in coastal Andhra, whereas Madigas are more in number in Telangana. So that geographical distinction is. So therefore, in that kind of a context, efforts are made to bring about some kind of a rapprochement, some kind of understanding between these communities, so as to provide an opportunity for the weakest within the weaker, category called the Dalits. So those efforts are being made. I think this is being done also in Punjab, for example, and I think in Madhya Pradesh to some extent, but in the south, in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala, these efforts are going on to bring about, unity between these subcastes, and to provide the constitutional benefits equitably to the various sub-communities within the category called the Dalit.
So my last question is, should the term Dalit journalism and Dalit literature, which is being used popularly now, should it be replaced with another? Is it a narrow nomenclature, and does it only signify a caste segregation today, like caste-based segregation today? And how
sure.
oppressed sections troubled by Manuvadi society and the corporate world can be included in the universe? Yeah.
Yes, this is very important. I think now, given the experience of the Dalit movements, articulations since about 1980s, I think today there is an urgent need, both conceptually, programmatically, strategically, to expand the term Dalit so as to include the other, oppressed communities. So I agree with my friend, Professor Kancha when he used the term as an analytical category in the social science discourse, Dalit-Bahujan. So I would imagine Dalit-Bahujan, because the term Dalit, the conceptualization of Dalit as oppressed, in the context of Dalit Panther movement and the Dalit Sangharsh Samiti, Dalit Mahasabha, made a sense. At that time, of course, Dalit meant actually all the oppressed, suppressed communities, including gender. But now, given the diversity, of the proliferation of the caste system, the diversification of the caste system, the diversification of the occupational thing, and the modernization, and the globalization, etc., etc. Taking all these things into account, we need to expand, the scope of the term, and therefore I agree with Ilaya. I also suggest that in the field of journalism, just as in other fields, the category of Dalit-Bahujan would be more meaningful, in terms of providing space, for these diverse, articulations, and therefore Dalit, as it was understood, let's say in the 80s, is definitely different from what it is now. So, though Dalit Panther movement had conceptualized it as a broad, inclusive category, but I think in the course of praxis, and in the kind of experience that are gained in various parts, it now appears that we need to have a more meaningful category, so as to subsume all the other non-Dalit communities in this category, so as to give them an opportunity to express themselves in the media, and kind of the onslaught of corporate capitalism. So in that sense, we need to sort of revise and to sort of evolve this category. But one category that comes to my mind, as I mentioned, which Ilaya has very ably kind of conceptualized, and that category should be really useful, which includes, of course, gender, which includes minorities, and which includes Adivasis and so on and so forth. So that a broad category is desirable, so as to make the journalism, the field of journalism, more democratic, more diverse, and to sort of also this is an important, of course, an important forum for articulating the emancipatory, ideology of the oppressed of the Indian society.